Presented from the Aishin Broadcast Studio at Babcock's Media.
Hello and welcome once again to Counterculture, presented by Counterman Magazine. My name is Jeff White. I'm the managing editor of Counterman. Well, for any parts business, proper inventory management is essential. Our guest today is someone who just so happens to have written not one, but two books on the topic. Gary Naples, a name familiar to much of our Counterman audience. He's the author of By the Numbers, the second edition of which was recently published, and Beyond the Numbers, which Gary is in the process of revising and updating. Gary, thanks for joining us.
My pleasure, and thank you for having me on Counterculture this morning.
Absolutely. Well, when we talk about inventory, many counter professionals see it from a day-to-day perspective, what comes in, what goes out. How can counter pros start thinking more strategically about inventory management?
Well, in the simplest terms, let's say, it's like running a household. So you purchase things for your household on a daily basis or a weekly basis or a monthly basis, and you're kind of maintaining an inventory in that regard. So you're looking down the road, well, most people anyway, about what you may need for upcoming events or for dinners or whatever the case may be. That said, probably one of the most important things let's say a parts manager can do from that standpoint is kind of look into their crystal ball and try and anticipate what's needed. Now, there's two ways of doing that. Number one, by learning all you can about your inventory control system. That's your tool. That's your tool for maintaining your customer responsive inventory. The second thing that's needed is, of course, which I'm a big proponent of, and that's tracking lost sales. So lost sales kind of help you activate that crystal ball, because that helps you determine what you should have had when the customers ask for it that you didn't have. And that helps, between a strong understanding of your inventory control system and diligently tracking lost sales, that should help you maintain a profitable and customer responsive inventory.
Now, in the newest edition of your book, By the Numbers, you've introduced something new, the inventory effectiveness quotient, which sounds like a very important metric. How might a counterperson use the IEQ to influence or improve the way their department manages stock?
Well, a counterperson can work in conjunction with their parts manager, and it's really a management level tool. Now, keep in mind, when I wrote these books, and I'll get into IEQ in a second, when I wrote these books, it was to help counter people transition to the management profession. When I started in the business, and I think a little history is important here. When I started in the business, there was nothing to help a counter person become a manager. You were just kind of thrown into that position without any financial knowledge, without any, and as far as your inventory management, inventory control system was concerned, which incidentally was a card file at that time, you had a limited knowledge of how that worked. And usually you were put into those positions because you were either good with numbers, good with customers, had a good memory, all those things come together and they say, yeah, you're going to be the manager. So again, getting back to IEQ, that was developed as a management level tool, but counter people are involved in that process because they could help the manager provide the correct responses to that tool. And when I say that, there's some subjective questions that are within the tool, which whoever is using the tool should try and answer those questions as honestly as possible. And there's also some specific questions about the performance of the department. So working as a team, counter people can assist the manager in answering those questions as honestly, let's say, as possible. to get to ascertain the best possible outcome. Now, I've introduced IEQ in the second write-up of the first edition, but it's not a new concept. I first developed it probably back in the early 2000s, as memory serves me correct. I first introduced it at a SEMA seminar. I did a couple SEMA shows in Vegas, and I first introduced it at the SEMA show, and it went over with a resounding success, and that was in 2007. And then we incorporated it into a comprehensive management training program for American Honda, and that was used as part of the training program for their dealership parts managers nationally. So we know it works. It's been tested and proven, and it gives the department, again, working as a team, it gives the department and the manager a high-level view of whether their department is responding, has an inventory that customers that are serving customers' needs. So customer satisfaction is part of the process of IEQ, and also profitability. So by gauging profitability and customer satisfaction, it kind of tells you whether or not you're where you should be with your department.
All right, over time, counter professionals are going to gain parts knowledge. Maybe they're already excellent with parts knowledge. When it comes to financial or performance metrics, they may not feel as confident as they do with parts. What do you think is the best way? How would you recommend that they start building the skills to be comfortable with financial/performance metrics?
Okay, that's an excellent question, because when it comes to the financial end of any business, that's your scorecard. Okay, we're all in business to make money. There's nobody, there's the other things that come into play, like, I love serving customers and I love the people I work with and so on and so forth. But at the end of the day, it's the money that matters. And that being said, again, I go back to my time starting in the business. I had no knowledge. I had very little financial knowledge with regard to operating a parts department, parts store. So what I did to educate myself is I went to libraries and I read as many books as I can on the subject. Now, that being said, there's, you can get financial statements for dummies and, books like that, which are very, very helpful. But I thought to incorporate some of this into both books that I published, because that's an important factor in helping counter people understand the financial end of that process. Now, since I put this information into the books, I try to keep it as basic as possible. So that's actually a good place to start. But I strongly encourage anyone who wants to better understand financial statements, and I'm talking about balance sheets and profit and loss reports. When I say financial statements, they should get out and check a few other books about the subject. There's a lot of online information now about the subject, and it's very easy to understand. And again, it goes back to basically what most people do in their day-to-day life. You're actually, if you're operating a budget, you're actually working with the financial statement in a sense, So it's not it shouldn't come off as scary as it sounds to most people, or as mysterious as it sounds. It's actually very easy, but education is an important key. And again, I go back to the books and saying that they're very simple in how it's laid out, and it's a step-by-step process within the books.
Sure. I'm going to put you on the spot here, Gary. There's a lot of great
Sure.
information in both of these books. If you can, give one piece of advice from either book that you think every parts counter person should apply immediately.
Well, probably one of the most important things, and I think I said it on the onset, Whatever inventory control system you're working with, try and learn as much as you can about it, because that will be the tool you will be using to help you maintain your customer responsive inventory. And I go back to customer responsive inventory because that you want the part on the shelf when the customer wants it. That's your most profitable sale, and the least stressful, in that sense. So if I have to give one piece of advice, that would be it. Learn as much as you can about the tools you're working with.
That is great advice, lots of great information, and Gary, we could probably go on a lot longer, but that is all the time we have for today. Gary Naples, author of By the Numbers and Beyond the Numbers, both published by SAE. Gary, thanks for joining us on Counterculture, and hopefully you can join us again soon.
I would be happy to. Let's keep in touch. My pleasure, Jeff.
Absolutely. That is all for this episode of Counterculture. For more Counterman videos, go to the Counterman YouTube page or visit counterman.com. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.